At my own baby shower, my husband lifted his glass in a toast. But his tribute wasn't for me, it was for his mother. "She's the one who will truly raise our child," he declared. I was just the instrument. In the blur of polite applause, no one saw me quietly make my exit. But the following morning, a delivery arrived on their doorstep that would unravel everything. "This child will truly be raised by my mother," Ethan announced, aiming his champagne flute at his beaming mom, Eleanor, instead of at me, his 7 months pregnant wife. Mia is simply the vessel that Providence selected. A wave of genteel applause filled the room, but the only sound I heard was something inside me cracking apart, a fracture more final and complete than the glass I let slip from my fingers to shatter on the floor. There I was, the guest of honor, finally hearing the quiet truth they'd been living all along. But this feeling of being suffocated, of being slowly erased, it had started long before that public humiliation. It was a gradual thing, like the oxygen being slowly bled from a room, so imperceptible you don't realize you're choking until you're desperately gasping for breath. My life before Ethan was my own. When I first accepted the teaching position at Northwood Junior High in the small town of Crestview, Michigan, population just under 9,000, I was Amelia Thorne, but everyone called me Mia. I was fresh out of my master's program, full of ambitious ideas about how to make literature come alive for a new generation. The old brick schoolhouse with its echoing hallways and the scent of chalk dust and old books became my sanctuary. Within the 4 walls of my classroom, adorned with student poetry and quotes from great authors, I found a deep sense of purpose guiding 8th graders through the treacherous landscape of early adolescence. "Miss Thorne, are we ever actually going to use The Great Gatsby in the real world?" A student named Kevin once asked from the back row. "You'll use the ability to see beyond the surface of things," I'd replied, with a confidence that felt so natural inside that room. "And maybe you'll learn a thing or two about the dangers of living in the past. If only I'd been able to apply that same critical lens to my own life. Perhaps then I would have seen the red flags when Ethan Davenport, the charming insurance broker from the family that had basically put Crestview on the map, began singling me out at town events. Perhaps I would have questioned why our first few dates always seemed to morph into a trio, with his mother, Eleanor, conveniently joining us for dessert. I remember him explaining that major decisions, even something as trivial as which movie we should see, required her input. "Mom's perspective is invaluable to me," Ethan had once said, his chest puffed with pride, and I, naively, found it sweet. A man who held his mother in such high regard, surely he would respect all women. What a profoundly tragic misjudgment that turned out to be. By the time we walked down the aisle, the dynamic was firmly cemented. The cozy lakeside cabin I had meticulously researched for our honeymoon was vetoed for the upscale mountain lodge Eleanor preferred. The house we bought, a lovely colonial just a few streets from hers, was decorated not according to the vision boards I had created, but to Eleanor's exacting standards of timeless elegance. Our dinners were routinely interrupted by her nightly calls, during which Ethan would retreat to his study for long, private conversations, leaving me to stare at my cooling plate of food. "That's just how the Davenports are," my colleague Diane had said one day in the teacher's lounge after I'd made a passing comment. "Eleanor has had Ethan wrapped around her little finger since his father passed away. The whole town knows it. The whole town, it seemed, except for me." The pregnancy was a surprise, a wonderful one, or so I believed at the time. When I saw that positive result, this wave of optimism washed over me. I thought maybe, just maybe, a child would finally put me at the center of Ethan's world. Maybe now I would hold more importance than his mother. But instead of solidifying my place in the family, my pregnancy only hastened my disappearance. Our first prenatal appointment was supposed to be a moment of pure magic. I had envisioned Ethan and me holding hands, our eyes welling up as we heard our baby's heartbeat for the very first time. Instead, I found myself lying on the examination table, a knot of surprise and discomfort tightening in my stomach as Eleanor swept into the room right behind my husband. My mother was a head nurse for over 30 years, Ethan explained to the slightly bewildered obstetrician, Dr. Evans. She knows all the right questions to ask. Dr. Evans offered a polite, strained smile. I appreciate that, but for privacy— Nonsense, Eleanor cut in, her voice smooth as silk. Mia doesn't mind a bit. Do you, dear? All eyes in the room turned to me. I felt my throat constrict with that all too familiar pressure of being outmaneuvered and outnumbered. I suppose it's all right, I whispered, the words feeling like tiny, sharp stones in my mouth. The sound of the heartbeat, rapid and strong, filled the sterile room. Tears immediately sprang to my eyes at the sheer miracle of it, but my moment was cut short. Eleanor was already grilling the doctor about crown rump length and growth charts. Is everything developing on schedule? I managed to ask, my voice barely audible. Everything looks absolutely perfect, Dr. Evans assured me, but her gaze was directed at Eleanor, not at me, the mother. By our next appointment, Eleanor arrived with a binder full of questions she'd printed from the internet. By the third, she was dictating changes to my diet and insisting I abandon my daily walks for a prenatal yoga class she'd researched. By the fourth, she had successfully convinced Ethan, that doctor, Evans was too new school and had arranged to transfer my care to Dr. Albright, the older male physician who had, of course, delivered Ethan himself. Davenport babies require seasoned hands, Eleanor had declared with an air of finality. Dr. Albright understands our family's medical history. When I arrived for my 20-week anatomy scan, the receptionist cheerfully handed me a clipboard with forms to transfer my care. I hadn't approved it. I hadn't even been asked. "Oh, your mother-in-law handled all the paperwork," the receptionist explained with a bright smile. "She mentioned you were so busy with your teaching job, she wanted to take care of the details for you." I sat in the waiting room, the papers trembling in my hand as Ethan and Eleanor arrived together, laughing about something from the lunch they'd just shared, a lunch to which I hadn't been invited. "Oh, good, you're getting the forms signed," Ethan said, giving my shoulder a distracted pat. "Mom says Dr. Albright is the best in the state." "I like Dr. Evans," I said, my voice quiet. She listened to me. "Dr. Albright will know what's best for the baby," Eleanor replied, her tone gentle but her eyes as hard as pebbles. "And that's the only thing that matters now, isn't it? Not your personal comfort, but what's best for the baby." The message couldn't have been clearer. My feelings were an inconvenience. My preferences were selfish. The baby, the next Davenport heir, was the prize. I was simply the packaging. It was my friend Sarah Jenkins who first noticed I was fading. We had started at Northwood Junior High in the same year, 6 years ago, bonding over shared lesson plans and the chaos of lunch duty. Her classroom was just across the hall, and we had a ritual of walking out to the faculty parking lot together. "You've gotten so quiet lately," she observed one afternoon, her brow furrowed with genuine concern as she studied my face. "Everything going okay with the baby?" "The baby's perfect," I replied on autopilot, giving the standard, pre-approved answer I gave to everyone. "I didn't ask about the baby, Mia," Sarah said softly. "I asked about you." The sincerity in her voice, so different from the performative interest of Ethan's circle, made my eyes burn with unexpected tears. I blinked them back furiously. "Just tired," I managed to say. You know, pregnancy stuff. But Sarah wasn't buying it. "When was the last time you actually chose something for yourself, Mia? I mean anything. A restaurant? A movie you wanted to see?" I searched my memory and came up blank. The realization hit me like a physical shock. My maternity clothes were all selected from a catalog Eleanor deemed appropriate. Our groceries were bought from a list she compiled for optimal fetal nutrition. She'd even made a comment about the vibrant posters in my classroom being a bit garish for a learning environment, and I'd taken half of them down. "It's not that bad," I said, my defense sounding weak even to my own ears. "Eleanor's just trying to help." My cousin said the same thing about her mother-in-law, Sarah countered, her expression serious. Now she has to get permission to take her own kids to the playground. Just be careful, okay? You're starting to disappear. Her words echoed in my mind on the drive home, where I walked in to find Eleanor in our nursery, directing 2 delivery men who were assembling a crib. It was an enormous, imposing oak piece I had never laid eyes on. "What happened to the white crib we picked out?" I asked, my head spinning with confusion. Ethan and I had spent an entire Saturday at a boutique, happily testing gliders and comparing models, before settling on one we both loved. "This was Ethan's," Eleanor announced, caressing the dark polished wood as if it were a sacred relic. "Every Davenport baby has slept in it. I've had it stored in my attic, but we already placed the order for the other one. I took the liberty of canceling that flimsy modern thing," she said, waving a dismissive hand. "This is true craftsmanship, far safer." I looked past her to Ethan, who had just appeared in the doorway. "Did you know about this?" He just shrugged. "Mom sent me a text at work. It makes sense, right? Save some money and use a family heirloom. But it was never about the money. The Davenports had plenty between Ethan's booming insurance firm and the investments his late father had left. It was about power. It was about systematically erasing every choice I made, chipping away at my identity until nothing was left. The baby shower preparations became the final decisive battleground for my dwindling sense of self. What was supposed to be a celebration of my journey into motherhood was completely hijacked by Eleanor. The invitations, a regal navy blue despite us not knowing the baby's gender, proudly announced a blessed addition to the Davenport family without a single mention of my name. "Don't you think it should say something about it being our shower?" I asked Ethan one night, holding up the thick, embossed card. "Mom has a strong feeling it's a boy," he said, his eyes glued to his phone. "Besides, everyone knows you're a Davenport now." But was I? As the plan steamrolled forward, every one of my suggestions was gently but firmly bulldozed. The quaint tea room I had my heart set on was rejected in favor of the formal ballroom at the Crest View Country Club, the site of every significant Davenport event for the last 50 years. The guest list ballooned with members of Eleanor's Garden Club and her charity league, women I'd barely exchanged a dozen words with. I was thinking it would be fun to play that game where everyone brings a children's book instead of a card, I ventured one afternoon as we sat around Eleanor's mahogany dining table. "We could start building the baby's library. We have all of Ethan's childhood books perfectly preserved in the attic," Eleanor dismissed with a tight smile. "And I've already ordered the most beautiful custom baby journals, monogrammed, of course." Ethan beamed at her. "Always one step ahead, Mom." Neither of them looked at me, sitting there with my silent suggestions and the life growing inside me. They didn't see another piece of me being packed away and stored in the attic, right alongside those old books. The morning of the shower, I stood in front of my closet, staring at the powder blue maternity dress Eleanor had sent over the day before. To match the decor, the attached note had read, I had planned on wearing a cheerful yellow sundress my sister had bought me, the only thing that made me feel remotely like myself amidst the swelling ankles and stretched skin. "You're not actually going to wear that, are you?" Ethan asked as I came out of the bedroom in the yellow dress. Mom went to a great deal of trouble to coordinate the color scheme. "I like this one," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "My sister picked it out for me." Ethan's face soured. "It's for one afternoon, Mia. Can't you just do this one thing to make Mom happy? For once?" For once. As if my entire existence for the past 3 years hadn't been a masterclass in accommodating Eleanor, as if my own happiness had ever been a factor. But as always, I caved. I went back into the bedroom and changed into the blue dress, which made my skin look sallow and drained of life. As I fastened the small pearl buttons at the high conservative collar, a style Eleanor favored for all my maternity wear, I caught my reflection in the mirror and barely recognized the woman looking back. Where was the history teacher who once debated politics with strangers in a pub in Ireland? Where was the woman who had strong, passionate opinions? Where was Mia Thorne? I was vanishing, breath by breath, choice by choice. That pale blue dress was just another layer of the suffocating fabric being wound tighter and tighter around my neck. Little did they know, Ethan's toast would be the final, crushing turn, the moment that would force me to either break free or be smothered completely. The country club ballroom was a sea of blue and silver. Streamers hung from the chandeliers and elaborate centerpieces, with tiny silver rattles sat on every table. A massive banner was strung across the stage, proclaiming, "Welcome, Baby Davenport." Not Mia and Ethan's baby, not even a simple congratulations. Just Baby Davenport, as if I were merely a surrogate for the family dynasty. I stood awkwardly by the gift table as Eleanor held court at the entrance, graciously accepting hugs and well wishes that should have been directed at me. The blue dress felt constricting, the high collar choking me, though it was perfectly tailored. Mia. A welcome voice sliced through the polite chatter. My sister, Chloe, rushed toward me, her fiery red hair a beacon in the muted room. She enveloped me in a bone-crushing hug, then pulled back, her sharp eyes scanning my face. "God, you look exhausted." "Thanks, Chloe," I managed, mustering a weak smile. 7 months pregnant will do that to a person. "That's not what I mean," she said, her gaze narrowing. "What's with the washed-out dress? And why is your mother-in-law acting like she's the one who's pregnant?" Before I could formulate a reply, Eleanor materialized at my side, her manicured hand gripping my arm with surprising force. "Chloe, how lovely of you to drive all the way from Detroit." Her smile was a perfect cold crescent. "Mia, dear, Mrs. Gable from the Historical Society is asking about your due date. Why don't you go chat with her while I get the games organized?" It was an order, not a request. I gave Chloe's hand a quick squeeze before being guided toward a group of Eleanor's friends, women who cooed over my bump while struggling to recall my name. "There's the glowing mother-to-be," Mrs. Gable exclaimed, her eyes fixed firmly on my stomach. "When is that baby due again, dear?" another woman asked, her head cocked with practiced interest. "October 20th, I recited. "Just in time for the annual Davenport Foundation Gala," someone chirped. "Eleanor must be over the moon." I just nodded, a silent, smiling doll. I had, of course, not been consulted about this gala, though it was apparently a major event on the family calendar. Another party where I'd be a prop, seen but not heard. Chloe found me a few minutes later as I was staring blankly at the dessert table, a monument of pastel-colored macarons and petit fours. "This is seriously bizarre, Mia," she whispered, her voice low. "I don't think half these people have ever spoken to you." "They're Eleanor's friends," I explained, the excuse tasting like ash in my mouth. "It's important to her." "And what about what's important to you?" Chloe's directness was a splash of cold water. "Since when do you let someone else design your entire life?" "Since I signed the marriage certificate," I thought, but I said, "It's just complicated." "No, it's not complicated. It's messed up," Chloe shot back, her eyes flashing with anger. "You're not yourself anymore, Mia. You're like a ghost." Before I could process the sting of her words or admit that she was right, Eleanor's voice rang out. "Ladies, if you could please find your seats, it's time to begin the games." The first game was a trivia quiz about Ethan's childhood, filled with questions that only Eleanor could possibly answer. "Question number 3, Eleanor announced with a dramatic flourish. What was baby Ethan's very first word? A few women scribbled guesses on their blue note cards. I just sat there, my card empty. In 3 years of marriage, Ethan had never told me his first word. It had never even occurred to me to ask. "The answer," Eleanor declared, beaming, "is Mama." Chloe rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might get stuck. "Shocker," she muttered under her breath. The games dragged on, each one a tribute to the Davenport legacy or Ethan's personal history. There wasn't a single question about me, the woman actually carrying the child we were supposed to be celebrating. By the third game, Pin the crest on the Davenport family tree. Chloe had given up all pretense of playing and was looking up earlier, train schedules back to Detroit. "I can switch my ticket to tomorrow morning if you want to get out of here," she whispered urgently. "This is a 5-alarm fire, Mia. I can't just leave," I whispered back, even as every cell in my body screamed to run. "Why the hell not?" she hissed. "These people don't even see you." Her words were a punch to the gut because they were unequivocally true. I made an excuse about needing some water and escaped into the hallway, leaning against the cool wall and trying to take a deep, steadying breath. From around a corner, I heard the low murmur of voices. A couple of Eleanor's friends, sneaking a cigarette by an open window. "Already has the nursery completely set up at her own house," one was saying. "A perfect duplicate of the one at their place." "For when the baby has sleepovers at Grandma's?" the other asked. "From what Eleanor's been saying, it sounds like that'll be most of the time," the first one replied, exhaling a plume of smoke. "Apparently, the girl is insisting on going right back to her teaching job. So selfish, if you ask me. Eleanor raised 2 boys and never once left them with a sitter. This new generation, they think their little careers are more important than family. Thank God Eleanor will be there to give that baby a proper upbringing." The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. A duplicate nursery? Most of the time? I'd mentioned once, in passing, that I'd like to return to teaching. Eventually. It was a vague, distant thought, not a concrete plan, and they had twisted it into proof that I was an unfit mother before I'd even had the chance to be one. I slipped back into the ballroom, my movements stiff and robotic. The gift table was piled high with packages, all wrapped in shades of blue. Chloe caught my eye from across the room, a question in her raised eyebrow. I just gave a slight shake of my head, unable to articulate the cold dread that had settled in my chest. Just then, a side door opened, and Ethan strode in to a smattering of applause. He'd been playing a round of golf with his late father's business partners, promising to make an appearance at his own baby shower. His arrival instantly changed the room's atmosphere. Eleanor's posture, already ramrod straight, seemed to gain an extra inch of pride. Her face glowed as he kissed her on the cheek before wandering over to me. "You look good," he said, his touch on my arm fleeting before he accepted a glass of champagne from a server. He didn't kiss me. He didn't place a hand on my belly. He didn't acknowledge our child in any meaningful way. "Time for the toast," Eleanor called out, gesturing for everyone's attention. Ethan moved to the front of the room, raising his glass. This was it, I thought, a flicker of foolish hope igniting within me. This is the moment he'll finally see me. He'll thank me. He'll tell everyone how much he loves me. "I want to thank you all for being here today," he started, his voice resonating through the club's ballroom. He thanked his father's old golfing buddy by name. He thanked Mrs. Gable for knitting a hideous blue and silver blanket. He thanked his boss for the company's generous paternity leave policy. But most of all, he continued, raising his glass higher, his eyes finding his mother's in the crowd, "I want to thank my mom." My frozen smile felt brittle enough to crack. "Mom, none of this would have been possible without you. You've guided us every single step of the way, from choosing the right doctor to decorating the perfect nursery. You've made sure everything is absolutely flawless for your grandson's arrival." Eleanor pressed a hand to her heart, a picture of maternal devotion. "You're the one who will truly be raising this child," Ethan said, his words cutting through me like shards of glass, "teaching him the Davenport values, showing him what's important in life. Mia is simply the vessel that Providence selected to bring him to us. But you, Mom, you will be his true guide." A chorus of awes and "how sweet" rippled through the audience. Glasses clinked, women dabbed at their eyes. Chloe's hand found mine, her grip painfully tight. No one was looking at me. No one saw the silent tremor in my hands. No one noticed as I quietly rose from my chair, walked out the side entrance across the manicured lawn, and got into my car. The tears finally came as I drove away, the words echoing in my head. Just the vessel. Not a wife, not a mother, not a person. A container valued only for its contents. For the first time, I saw my marriage for what it was, not a partnership I'd hoped to build, but a slow, methodical burial of the woman I used to be. A beautiful, ornate coffin, lined with Davenport traditions and the appearance of propriety, being lowered gently into the ground while I was expected to smile and thank everyone for coming. The house felt cavernous when I pulled into the driveway. It was emptier than when I'd left, though nothing had physically changed. Our wedding portrait sat on the console table in the entryway, a cruel mockery. Ethan had his arm around me, but Eleanor stood just behind him, her hand placed possessively on his other shoulder. How had I never seen that detail so clearly? How had I been so blind? I drifted through the rooms like a phantom, my fingers grazing furniture I hadn't chosen and walls painted in colors I didn't like. Nothing in this house was mine, not even the life I was carrying. The only part of the house Eleanor avoided was the attic. Far too dusty, she'd once sniffed. I pulled down the rickety stairs and flicked on the single bare bulb, illuminating rows of neatly stacked boxes. Most were filled with Ethan's childhood memorabilia, lovingly preserved by his mother. But in a far corner were 3 dusty cardboard boxes marked Mia, college, my former life, the one in which I had a voice. I sliced open the first box, my hands shaking. Inside were my yearbooks, journals, and photo albums from a different era. Pictures of a woman who argued her points, who laughed loudly, who believed her opinions mattered. Who was she? And could I ever get her back? Tucked between 2 larger boxes was a smaller one, Wedding. It held our guest book, the dried remains of my bouquet, and the garter I'd never tossed because Eleanor found the tradition tacky. I pulled it closer, needing to see if there had ever been a genuine spark of love, or if I'd been cast as the vessel from day one. Beneath the layers of tissue paper, I found a leather-bound photo album I didn't recognize. The cover was embossed with the initials EDCA, Ethan Davenport, and... who? My maiden name was Thorne. My heart hammered against my ribs as I opened it. The first page showed a younger, more relaxed Ethan with his arms wrapped around a beautiful, radiant blonde. Ethan Clare, senior year, read the elegant script below. They looked incandescently happy. They looked like equals. I had a vague memory of him mentioning a Claire early in our relationship. My college girlfriend, he'd said with a dismissive wave. Mom never approved of her. I turned the pages, watching their love story unfold in a series of professionally preserved moments. Proms, holidays, a trip to Europe. The last photo was at their college graduation, their eyes locked on each other. Tucked into a flap on the back cover was an envelope of heavy, cream-colored stationery. With a sense of dread, I pulled out the letter, dated just 3 weeks before I met Ethan. My dearest Ethan, it began. Your mother's ultimatum is heartbreaking, but I can't say I'm surprised. The Davenport name has to come first. It always does. Maybe one day you'll find the strength to choose your own life, but I can't spend mine waiting for you to stand up to a woman who will never find me suitable. I will always love you, but I deserve to be someone's first choice. Goodbye, Claire. My hands shook uncontrollably. Eleanor had orchestrated their breakup. Ethan had chosen his inheritance over the love of his life. And then, just a few weeks later, he'd found me. The quiet, agreeable teacher who wouldn't make waves, who was so desperate to please. Had he ever loved me? Or was I just the pre-approved, compliant replacement? A suitable vessel to carry on the Davenport line? The album fell from my lap. As I bent down to retrieve it, an old-style flip phone I'd never seen before clattered onto the wooden floor. It must have been tucked inside the album. I flipped it open, and to my astonishment, the screen lit up. It was full of text messages, dozens of them, between Ethan and Claire, all dated within the first 6 months of my marriage. My stomach twisted into a painful knot as I read the words no wife should ever see. Miss you. Ethan had texted 3 weeks after our honeymoon. Another Sunday dinner with Mom critiquing my every word. It's unbearable. Claire had replied, "Then why are you still there? You know how I feel." "It's complicated," Ethan wrote back. "The business, the house. My whole life is tied to her approval. And now, Mia might be pregnant." My finger froze on the screen. That message was dated from the week I first suspected I was pregnant, before I'd even worked up the courage to tell Ethan. How could he have known? I scrolled further, the horrifying truth assembling itself piece by piece. "Mom's ecstatic about the baby," a later text from Ethan read. "Says it's the key to securing the family legacy." "And Mia?" Claire had asked. His reply gutted me. "She's just happy that I'm happy." The exchanges continued for months, Ethan complaining about his new life, reminiscing about their past, even trying to arrange a secret meeting that Claire thankfully had refused. The very last message was sent around my 4th month of pregnancy. "I can't do this anymore, Ethan," Claire had written. "You're a married man about to be a father. You need to let me go." "I know," Ethan had replied. "Mom says it's time to focus on my family now anyway. She's got it all under control. All under control." The phrase ricocheted around my skull as the puzzle pieces slammed into place. My quick acceptance by the formidable Eleanor, her obsessive involvement in my pregnancy. I wasn't chosen, I was selected. The room began to spin. Stumbling out of the attic, I made my way to the kitchen and gripped the edge of the counter, trying to breathe. The baby gave a sharp kick, as if sensing my turmoil. My cell phone was on the charger where I'd left it that morning. With fingers that were surprisingly steady, I made the first call. "Chloe, it's me." I swallowed hard against a lump in my throat. "I'm not okay. Can I come stay with you? For a while?" She didn't hesitate. "My place is your place. For as long as you need. Do you want me to come get you?" "No," I said, a new resolve hardening in my voice. "I'll drive. But there's something I have to do first." The second call was to Dr. Evans, my original OBGYN. I still had her number. "I need a prenatal paternity test," I said, dispensing with any pleasantries. "One that can be done before the birth." "There are some risks," she cautioned gently, "and it can be expensive." "I don't care," I stated. "How soon can we do it?" The third and final call was to a divorce attorney whose business card Sarah had slipped into my hand months ago. "Just in case," she'd said. "I need divorce papers drawn up," I told the woman who answered. "And I need to understand my rights regarding an unborn child when the presumed father is, in fact, not the father." With every call, my voice grew stronger. The meek woman in the pale blue dress was gone. In her place was someone I hadn't seen in years, someone I had missed terribly. I moved through the house with a clear, cold purpose, packing only the things that were truly mine. Clothes from before the marriage, my books, a few pieces of jewelry from my own family. It all fit into 2 suitcases and a small box, a pathetic testament to how little of myself remained in that house. Back in the bedroom, I slid my wedding ring off my finger and placed it on Ethan's nightstand. Beside it, I left a single folded note containing 5 simple words. "The vessel has emptied itself. Let them wake up to that." Dawn was painting the sky in shades of gray and pink as I pulled out of the driveway. My 2 suitcases were in the trunk, and the small box of memories was on the passenger seat. My GPS was set for Detroit, but I had one crucial stop to make. The courier service opened at 7, and I was their first customer of the day. "Guaranteed delivery by 9 a.m.? I asked, paying the extra fee for the rush service. "Yes, ma'am. Someone will have to sign for it," the clerk said, slapping the label onto the large manila envelope. "Oh, there will be someone there," I assured him, a grim smile touching my lips. I could picture the scene perfectly. Ethan and Eleanor, enjoying their quiet Sunday morning, completely oblivious to the fact that their perfectly controlled world was about to detonate. Across town, that very routine was indeed beginning to shatter. Eleanor used her key to let herself into her son's house at 8:15 a.m., carrying bags filled with ingredients for their traditional Sunday brunch. The baby shower had been an absolute success. Everyone had complimented her exquisite taste, her flawless planning. If Mia had seemed a little withdrawn at the end, well, pregnant women were known for their emotional volatility. "Ethan!" she called out, setting the bags on the pristine kitchen island. "I brought everything for crepes." No response. Frowning, she headed upstairs. Ethan was an early riser. The bedroom door was ajar. She pushed it open without knocking. It was, after all, practically her house. "Ethan, are you—" She stopped short. He was sitting on the edge of the unmade bed, still dressed in his clothes from the day before, staring blankly at his hands. When he looked up, his face was a mask of gray. "She's gone," he said, his voice raspy. "Mia." She left. Eleanor's eyes darted around the room, taking in the evidence. The closet door was open, revealing empty hangers where Mia's clothes should have been. Her side of the dresser had drawers pulled out, all empty. "What do you mean, gone?" "I assumed she was sleeping in. I got in late last night and crashed in the guest room. I just came in here and—" "Well, call her phone," Eleanor snapped, already starting to pace. She can't have gotten far, not in her condition. She mentally ran through a list of Mia's few friends. Austin held up his phone. "Goes straight to voicemail. I've tried 10 times. "This is absurd," Eleanor fumed. "It's the hormones. She's had a fit, and she'll come crawling back as soon as she realizes she can't even pick out a decent brand of prenatal vitamins on her own." The doorbell chimed, its cheerful sound a jarring interruption. Ethan didn't move, so Eleanor marched downstairs, smoothing her silk blouse and composing her features. No need for the neighbors to see any cracks in the Davenport facade. A courier stood on the porch, holding a digital tablet. "Delivery for Ethan Davenport. Signature required." "I'll sign," Eleanor said, snatching the stylus and scribbling her name. She took the thick manila envelope and shut the door. No return address, just a typed label. A cold sliver of dread worked its way up her spine. "There's a package for you," she announced, re-entering the bedroom. "Probably those new golf shoes you wanted." Ethan took the envelope listlessly. He turned it over a few times before tearing it open. 3 separate sets of documents slid out onto the duvet. The first was on official-looking medical letterhead. Bold letters across the top spelled out, "Prenatal Paternity Analysis." Ethan's eyes went wide as he scanned the page, the color draining completely from his face. "What is it?" Eleanor demanded, yanking the paper from his grasp. Her eyes flew across the text, her legendary composure crumbling. "Non-paternity confirmed. Probability of paternity, 0%. Conclusive exclusion." The words swam before her eyes as a hot, volcanic rage erupted in her chest. "She cheated on you," Eleanor spat, throwing the results onto the bed. That whole time, with her quiet little act, her, "Yes, Eleanor. Whatever you think is best, Eleanor." And she was carrying another man's child. Ethan just sat there catatonic. He mechanically reached for the second document, a thick stack of legal papers filled with dense paragraphs and yellow sign here flags. A petition for dissolution of marriage, already signed in Mia's clear, steady hand, dated the day before. "She planned this," Eleanor seethed, grabbing the divorce papers. The little viper. She was waiting for the perfect moment to publicly humiliate us. The third document was a single page, titled "Voluntary Relinquishment of Paternal Rights." Ethan finally spoke, his voice a choked whisper. She's waiving any right to child support, any claim on me at all." He looked up, bewildered. "Why would she do that if she was trying to trap me?" "To avoid a fight," Eleanor snapped, her mind racing. "To keep us from asking questions, from demanding a full investigation. I knew she wasn't right for this family. Too agreeable. No spine. Now we see it was all a front." A strange, bitter laugh escaped Ethan's lips. "You thought she was too agreeable? Mom, you've been micromanaging every second of her life. I was preparing her to be a proper Davenport wife," Eleanor retorted. "A task at which I have clearly failed." She snatched the final paper, her eyes narrowing as she read. Her fury faltered. The legal language on the waiver. It was eerily familiar. It was almost identical to a document she herself had drafted months ago, one she'd casually presented to Mia as a just-in-case contingency. It had been a loyalty test. Now her own words, her own legal trap, were being used as a weapon against her son. "We will fight this," she declared, her voice steel. "I have the best lawyers in the state. She can't do this." The humiliation... "Humiliation?" Ethan echoed, a new sharp edge to his voice. "Is that what you're worried about? What people will think? Of course. The Davenport name means something. Your father built a legacy." "That I was supposed to carry on with a suitable heir," Ethan finished, the words dripping with bitterness. "Except there is no heir, is there, Mom? Just some other man's baby that my wife was carrying while I..." He trailed off, a flush creeping up his neck. "While you've been what?" Eleanor demanded. But Ethan just shook his head, fumbling for his phone again. "I have to find her. I need to talk to her." "About what?" "She made her choice, Ethan. After everything we've done for her." He wasn't listening. He was scrolling through his contacts, his thumb hovering over a name. Then he tossed the phone onto the bed and buried his face in his hands. "This is her fault, not yours," Eleanor insisted, her voice softening as she sat beside him. "We will get through this. Together. Just you and me, like always." Ethan lifted his head, his eyes bloodshot but eerily clear. "Do you remember my toast yesterday?" "Of course. It was a beautiful tribute to everything I've done. I called her just the vessel," he said softly. "Not my wife, not the mother of my child, just a vessel." "And you smiled. Everyone in that room smiled. It was a figure of speech, Ethan, and a rather accurate one, as it turns out." "No," he said, shaking his head. "It was the truth. It's how we treated her, how I treated her, as if she was an object, a function, not a person." He picked up the paternity results again, staring at the clinical words that had detonated his life. "Maybe," he whispered, "this is exactly what I deserve." The doorbell rang again, and Eleanor flinched. Her perfect Sunday, her perfect world, was disintegrating with every passing minute. The second ring propelled Eleanor to her feet. She stormed downstairs, Ethan following like a man in a trance. Who else could possibly know? But it wasn't a nosy neighbor. It was Leo Vance, a guy Mia had dated in high school, looking awkward and out of place on their grand porch. "Is Mia here?" he asked, shifting his weight. "She called me this morning, asked if I could meet her here." Eleanor's eyes narrowed into dangerous slits. "Did she now? How very convenient for you." Ethan stepped forward, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. Leo had moved back to Crestview a year or so ago, taking over his family's hardware store. Ethan had seen him around but paid him no mind. Now, looking at Leo's kind blue eyes and earnest expression, a sickening realization began to dawn. "She's not here," Ethan said, his voice flat, "but I think you and I have a lot to talk about." 30 minutes later, Leo sat at the Davenport's kitchen table, his face pale as he absorbed the story. I had no idea," he stammered. "We dated for a little while when she first moved to town, before you two even met, but we broke it off. I never thought..." He looked up, a new urgency in his eyes. "Where is she now?" "That is none of your business," Eleanor cut in. Leo met her icy glare without flinching. "With all due respect, ma'am, if that baby is mine, then it is very much my business." "A baby needs a father who's ready to be one," Ethan said quietly, his voice devoid of anger, surprising them both. "Are you?" Miles away, I sat on Chloe's lumpy but comfortable sofa, my phone pressed to my ear as I listened to Leo's stunned silence. "I never knew," he said again. "Mia, I swear." "I know you didn't," I assured him, my free hand resting on my belly. "That's why I called. You had a right to know." "What do you need?" he asked immediately. "Money? A lawyer? Anything. His instinctive offer of support, so starkly different from Ethan's delegated concern, brought a lump to my throat. Just time, I said. I'm with my sister. I just need to figure things out. Can I see you? He asked, his voice hesitant. I'd like to talk. In person. I agreed to meet him at a small cafe the next weekend. As I hung up, Chloe set a mug of chamomile tea in front of me. So he didn't run screaming for the hills? He was nice, I admitted. No accusations, just concern. A novel concept for the men in your life, she said dryly. Have the outlaws been calling? My phone had been buzzing nonstop. Ethan, Eleanor, even some of their friends, no doubt conscripted into the search party. I'd only answered Leo's call. They'll get the message soon enough, I said. The test was conclusive. There's nothing left to say. Chloe watched me for a long moment. Are you really okay, Mia? This is a lot. Was I? My marriage was a lie. My life was in pieces. But underneath the chaos, a strange calm had taken root. For the first time in years, my own voice was the only one in my head. I was making my own decisions. I think, I said, a genuine smile forming on my lips. I'm going to be. The fallout in Crestview was swift. By Monday, Ethan was the subject of hushed conversations at his own office. By Tuesday, the gossip had morphed into a dozen different, dramatic versions of the story. Sarah called me that night. You won't believe it, she said, her voice buzzing with excitement. Eleanor's been spinning this tale about you having a nervous breakdown, but no one's buying it. Mrs. Gable from the Historical Society apparently told her to her face that she saw how they treated you at the shower and that it was unchristian and cruel. More calls came. People I barely knew reached out, confessing they'd always found Eleanor terrifying, that they'd seen the way my light had dimmed. It turned out I wasn't the only one who had seen me disappearing. 3 weeks later, I found a small, sunny apartment in a town called Riverside, 40 minutes away. Far enough for a new start, close enough for my doctor's appointments. The local school district, hearing I was available, offered me a position for the next fall. Good English teachers are hard to find, the superintendent had said. Your personal life is your own. Leo drove out to help me move, quietly assembling a bookshelf and hanging pictures. It was awkward at first, the ghost of our teenage romance hovering between us. But as the weeks turned into a month, we built a new, tentative friendship. I don't expect anything, I told him one evening as we folded tiny onesies. You didn't sign up for this, neither did you, he said gently, holding up a little yellow sleeper. But I want to be here, Mia, in whatever way you'll have me. When Lily Grace Thorne was born on a bright September morning, Chloe was holding one of my hands, and Leo was in the waiting room, pacing a hole in the floor. She's perfect, the nurse said, placing my daughter on my chest. She had 10 tiny fingers, 10 tiny toes, and a pair of startlingly familiar blue eyes. The look on Leo's face when he held her for the first time was a mixture of pure terror and absolute wonder. She's so little, he whispered. But she's strong, I said, watching her tiny fist curl around his finger. Like her mother. 6 months later, Ethan asked to meet. We chose a neutral coffee shop halfway between our new lives. I got there first, parking Lily's stroller by the table. She was babbling and happy, a perfect, beautiful little person. I almost didn't recognize the man who walked in. The polished, perfect Ethan Davenport was gone. In his place was a man with longer hair, tired eyes, and a t-shirt instead of a monogrammed cuff. He was alone. Thank you for coming, he said, his gaze fixed on Lily. She's beautiful, Mia. Thank you, I replied, and I was surprised to find I felt no anger. That fire had burned out long ago, leaving only a quiet clarity. I sold the agency, he said abruptly. I moved to the city. I'm going back to school for architecture. It's what I always wanted to do before. He didn't have to finish the sentence. That's great, Ethan, I said, and I meant it. And your mother? A shadow passed over his face. We're in therapy, setting boundaries. Turns out having your wife leave you and the entire town take her side is a powerful catalyst for self-reflection. I simply nodded. I'm glad, I said. I wanted to apologize, he said, his voice low. For everything. For what I said at the shower. For not seeing you. For not being strong enough. I could have been stronger too, I admitted. But I don't think either of us was ready to face the truth back then. We talked for an hour like two strangers who had once known each other intimately. When he left, I felt a sense of closure. The woman he had married, the woman who had disappeared, was gone for good. But the woman who sat there now, she had been there all along, waiting. Lily gurgled in her stroller, reaching her chubby arms toward me. I lifted her into my lap, burying my face in her sweet-smelling hair. Come on, little one, I whispered. Let's go home. Our life, entirely our choice. I was no vessel. I was a mother, a teacher, a woman who had finally found her own voice. And we were just getting started. If you were cheering for Mia to break free, hit that like button. For me, the moment she left that ring and the note "the vessel has emptied itself" was pure power. What part of her journey stood out to you? Let me know in the comments. For more stories about reclaiming your strength, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell. You won't want to miss what's next. End of story.